That's 100% not what I want, is for people to have greater permission or excuses to be disengaged with me as a human being. All right.
I am recording.
I'm recording too. All right.
Okay, great.
Cool. So, all right. Welcome back. This is episode 7
Yes.
of the Boss.Radio podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Cool. Not losing my mind yet. So yeah, we have a pretty cool topic for today, and that is what makes a life-changing technology, and why do we hold these types of innovations above our more modest conveniences?
It's a good topic. Yeah, so what makes a life-changing technology? I was thinking about working my way up to it.
Oh.
So starting with some examples of like technologies that have felt life-changing to me, and then trying to find what do they have in common with each other.
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it. What are some life-changing technologies in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do the obvious one that I feel like everyone has had a moment like this with a computer. But I was sitting down doing some homework, and I think I had to like rewrite the whole page. And I think my dad was like, oh, you should like learn how to use a computer, because you would just be able to select all, like you wouldn't have to redo all this stuff. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't believe you. And so we sat down and he typed up something in a word processor, and he was like, see, now look. And he selected a bunch of sentences, and he just clicked one button and they were all gone. And I was like, whoa, I was like, my mind was...
Wait, sorry.
Yeah.
Did you say you were using a typewriter before?
No, I was just handwriting. Most of my homework I had to do handwritten.
Oh, I see.
Like computers weren't mass adopted yet.
Dang.
Like they had printers and they had some computers at school for us to interact with, but it was more just, you have 45 minutes with a computer for like to learn how to use this thing. But for everything else, it was all handwritten.
Sure. I remember those days. I actually had to write something today, and I was like, wait, do I still know how to hold a pen?
Right.
This feels strange.
Yeah. There are moments today where I have to write maybe 2 pages I'll have to write by hand. And I'm like, I still keep, I don't know about you, I still keep a notebook on me specifically because in some meetings where things feel more intimate or confessional, or you want people to be saying personal things, it feels wrong, like the vibe is off if a computer is open while someone's like telling you something special. But then if you have a Moleskine, it feels like the vibe is right. I'm not a shill for that brand, whatever brand you like, but like...
I think about that sometimes, even just a lot of times you want to take a recording or you don't want to have to take notes. And so the automatic solution is, let me just get out my phone or get out my microphone and we'll record you. And we've got a perfect record. I don't have to be distracted by taking notes. But I think there's something that's just kind of like alienating a little bit maybe, or just unsettling about having this third ear there listening to you, and you don't know where it's going to go or who it's going to talk to, who's going to hear that recording later, how far is this going to spread. Whereas the main person that you're talking to, even the two of us right now just having this conversation, I know that you're listening, you know that I'm listening, and if we were just taking notes without recording it, like at best somebody might have a hearsay or a secondhand account, but they're not going to hear it out of my mouth, and they're going to understand that maybe some degree was paraphrased. So maybe I don't have to worry quite so much about my exact wording or my, my specific phrasing. But when it comes to recording, like, you're on the record and people are going to know what you said. And
even if you assume that no one's recording you, having a laptop open feels like someone could just be browsing a news website while you're like having this moment of like, oh no, this isn't important. I'm saying something important that's special to me.
Totally.
And this person's like, yeah, but I want to see the news. It's like an undivided attention thing. Whereas if you have a notebook open, I guess someone could technically be doodling, but it feels more like if the Moleskine's open, it's because they're focused on what you're saying, not unfocused.
Totally. It's funny your mention about undivided attention specifically. I remember back when Mark Zuckerberg announced that Facebook's name was changing to Meta. Well, there was all of this discussion about what is the Zuckerberg metaverse going to be like, and what are the killer apps? What's the value that you're going to have? And one of the main selling points I think that they were pitching was, oh yeah, you can be in a meeting and you can discreetly receive or be sending messages to your wife or whatever. Don't forget to pick up the kids or get the shopping, or you could be playing a game or something, and it's like, wait, is that what I want? That when I'm in a meeting, I'm taking time out of my day to be with someone and share information with them, and their mind is just like totally elsewhere because there's no reason for them to be mentally engaged in this room and this space and this conversation.
Right.
Like, that sucks. That's 100% not what I want. Is for people to have greater permission or excuses to be disengaged with me as a human being.
I agree 100%. And I think it also sucks on another level in addition, which is like, part of me, the generous part of me would be like, look, if you're a busy person and you're super smart and you're like solving the world's problems instead of listening to me, I'm okay with that. You know? Like if someone's a badass and they're just like, listen, everything you're saying is cool, but I actually have this like super urgent and important thing I'm working on, and it could help like spread nuclear energy in a safe way or something really important. But then like, I say go for it, right? Just ignore me. I don't care.
Well, in that case though.
But people are like sitting there playing Candy Crush or like something. Right. It's always something stupid.
Even in the case like, this person is working on really important problems. At that point, at least for me, I'd rather say, okay, I don't want to present a distraction. And it's not doing me a service to let me just talk to myself in your presence and feel like I've made an impact or what I said mattered. So if you decide that what I want to share is important, then let's have a conversation at a place and time of your choosing or convenience, or, when you're not busy saving the world. Yeah. But until then, I don't necessarily need to pretend.
Well, I agree with you in terms of, I see your point, and I think it's important what you're saying. If someone has something genuinely better to do, that's fine. Let's just like figure out the right time or place or whatever to. But I think and that makes sense from on a person-to-person level. I think the angle I was coming at this from was like, if I'm building a technology and I'm giving people options to do even more productive and valuable things, great. But if all I'm doing is like giving people the option to do something really really wasteful and just like pure cheap sugar, like dopamine rush, I don't know. That's not a life-changing technology. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. Maybe the definition needs to have some concept of there's a time and a place.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because Steve Jobs' original metaphor for the computer was a bicycle for the mind, right?
Oh, interesting. I hadn't heard that.
Oh, yeah, because people at the time were questioning whether computers could ever achieve like mass market adoption. Like people thought it would be this niche academic thing or like a hobbyist. In his day when he was still building his first sales funnel, computers were a hobbyist thing.
I guess I'm grateful that I'm young enough that I wasn't around at that time, because I think I probably would not have been one of the people who was wealthy or motivated enough to put up with the difficulty of this kind of hobby back then. But I'm grateful for the progress that has been made. I can't imagine a world really without computers. Like, knowing that they exist. When I was very young, actually, I was lucky to be in a family that had a computer. I was one of the first kids at my school to have a computer, and it was obvious to me what the advantages were. So I think this is kind of a challenge in the startup space, right? It's like people already have solutions. If people have problems, they might not be good solutions, but they have them, definitely. So the challenge for someone trying to create their own startup or create a new business is finding the challenges that are frustrating enough or tedious enough or difficult enough that people would be willing to pay or willing to change their habits in order to have somebody solve this problem for them. And for me, once I knew that computers existed, even if I was slow at typing, my letters were perfect every time when they came out of the keyboard. I didn't have to practice. I could just press that button. And if it wasn't right, well, I had the backspace key. And so it's at the point, if I am drawing in a notebook or something, I will actually make the mental contraction like I would if I'm going to hit Control Z or Command Z to undo if I make a mistake, as opposed to, shoot, I made a mistake, I need to find an eraser. It's so ingrained into my mode of production and creation that it feels obvious to me. Yeah. But I guess I can also see that there's a time when it felt totally irrelevant. It was too much work to be useful for any average person.
Right.
I started using computers before Windows was really popular. We had MS-DOS and that was it. And we had to run all of our software on the command line or write it ourselves. And that sucked. I remember an incredible piece of technology, not shitting on the past or anything, but the invention of the graphical user interface, the metaphor of having a desktop and folders and all of this was a brilliant innovation. And I think it really changed the world in terms of making computers mentally accessible to people, where it was easy enough and intuitive enough for them to be able to understand and think through it without having to study per se, that computers became a thing that was possible for most people. And I think that specific transition from hating computers in the MS-DOS era to feeling like they're very easy to use in the Windows 95 era was really what drove me to want to work in technology and want to be a designer. Is I wanted to be able to give people that sense of, wow, yeah, I can do this myself. Computers can be easy. Computers can solve my problems. I wanted to give people that feeling.
Makes sense. Yeah, that does underscore and reiterate. There was this moment of mass adoption after the GUI OS launched, where honestly for me it was copy, paste, and delete. Just saved so much time as a kid who was just writing all these papers for school.
Totally.
Saved time editing the paper and editing the paper and editing the paper so that I didn't have to erase stuff by hand. You know, that sucked. So that was a life-changing technology. You mentioned yeah, go ahead.
I guess I just taken it for granted that everybody who uses a computer knows that computers can do this. Even into the mid-2000s, which I would say was well past what I experienced to be average computer adoption in America,
right.
I still knew plenty of people who did everything on typewriters.
Yeah, I worked in a legal office where I occasionally heard the sound of a typewriter, and I was like, what is that? Like,
it's kind of a fun sound.
Someone pranking me right now?
I don't hate it.
Yeah, no, it's a cool sound, but like I couldn't believe this was like 2011.
Oh, damn.
And one of the legal secretaries has just been using that typewriter to do a certain specific thing probably since the 70s. It was still there and it still worked, and I guess she still kept ink around. She knew how to use a computer, but there was some use case for the typewriter specifically. I think one of the things a typewriter can do quickly is you can take an existing document that has already been printed and then append to it.
Totally. Yeah, I think especially until recently, we haven't really had the technology to scan and select text. So if you wanted to modify something without using a photo editor, you would have to retype it in that case.
Yeah, so her workflow at that time would have had to have been, we had great scanners, so she would have had to have scanned the document, used OCR.
OCR?
Right.
I don't know OCR.
To convert optical character recognition.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because when you scan a document, it doesn't come in as text data. It comes in as a photo.
Right, exactly.
Right?
But
as an image.
How long has OCR been around? I didn't even think it was publicly available in a meaningful capacity until
So Adobe had OCR in its product suite back then, but very few people paid for it.
Sure.
You had to pay for it. Also, it wasn't reliable. So when you scan a document, some of the characters are a little faded.
Totally.
Especially back then.
Yeah.
And so she would have had to have scanned it. Then hopefully the legal office would have paid for OCR, and then she would have run OCR against the scan, and then she would have finally had a text document that she could then append to, because she didn't have the point is, whatever the source of this document was that she was appending to, she didn't have the original file.
Right.
Again, legal offices still use fax and stuff like that.
Totally.
These documents come in and you don't have the original file to edit. So she was just like, fuck it, I'll just use this typewriter. And it was done. It was done.
Honestly, I think that's a great use case to stick with the typewriter and to stick with the old technology. That is a genuinely better, faster solution.
It is.
And that, I think, is the whole point about the innovator's challenge is your solution actually better? Is it actually faster than the thing that somebody's doing?
Right.
Even if the thing that they're doing is clunky, who cares?
Right.
It's a newsletter, they're shipping it out, there was a typo, they're going to photocopy it anyway. Who cares?
Right. So I think what's interesting here is, of course, what defines better. So for her, the typewriter was better. From the perspective of a domineering bureaucracy, if you're a bureaucracy and you want every single file that comes in through your office to be recorded, unique ID'd, stamped, and kept and persisted and copied for anyone to access later down the road.
Totally.
The OCR and the scanning and everything like that is what you want, because you don't want to lose anything. You're a bureaucracy, right? Nothing exists unless it gets stored and recorded and uniquely identified.
Yeah.
So for the legal secretary, the typewriter was great. It got the job done very quickly. She didn't have to worry about all this extra overhead. But for the bureaucracy wants the scanning and the unique ID, and it wants you to go through the overhead because it only cares about persisting, filing, organizing information, you know?
To that end, at least from my perspective, I would rather have digital copies to begin with.
Right.
Like, don't even allow the archived copies. If you have those physical media,
Right.
have somebody transcribe
Yeah.
it, have somebody double check it, and only operate with the digital content from then on.
Sure.
Because as long as you got backups, you're not losing it.
Right.
But even today, the optical character recognition can be
Flaky.
less than perfect.
Lossy. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's just interesting to think about that. For a long time, we had this very messy hybrid mix of systems. You had the paper filing system. So like a typical legal office would have whole rooms with shelves
crazy.
labeled and organized of casework, hard copies.
It's so much.
And doctors' back office have that too.
Right,
You know,
of
if you
course.
visit a surgeon's home office, or the surgeon probably has, she's got all her patients' case data backed up in hard copies in her home or something like that.
I know we're just making a case for why older technology can sometimes be better.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of situation where when you have rooms full of documents, honestly, sometimes those are the most fun workflows to digitize.
Right.
When you get the data cleaned up and sorted, you can really see the impact.
Right.
Not to mention the mercy that comes with having a simple digital file system instead of
Right.
walls of documents. Let's pick this up in the next one. I want to talk more about documents. In the meantime, thanks so much for joining us. Maybe let us know in the comments about any life-changing technologies you're thankful for, or about old systems that you still prefer when computers just can't cut it. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Boss Radio.